Welcome back to the Morning Watch. You're with me, Clinton Chisholm. We're talking Credit Bureau in Jamaica with Miss Deane and Mr. Chung. Miss Deane, Mr. Chung, are you there?
I am here.
Yes, I'm here, Clinton.
All right. Is there any regulatory mechanism in Jamaica now to monitor the free rein interest rates charged on higher purchase transactions on credit cards, let's say? Mr. Chung?
Yeah, well, I mean, there is legislation that actually monitors, for example, the higher purchase arrangement. In terms of the level of interest rates, there's none that monitors. I mean, we don't monitor the level of interest rates. I mean, I think that's a market mechanism. But certainly, the Higher Purchase Act, there's a Higher Purchase Act that monitors higher purchase arrangements. Certainly for the protection of the consumer and also the store. And you have credit card agreements that monitor that relationship between you and your bank. One of the things that.
But the credit card agreement is unilateral, isn't it? The banks decide who protects the consumer. You either take it or leave it.
Yeah, well, the economic term, let the buyer beware.
Yes, but
the fact of the matter. I mean, you can always get redressed, if you've been unfairly treated.
Take the big USA.
We live in a free market, and rates and agreements are pretty much market determined. The legislation that exists is the framework, as Dennis says, and then of course the government, by how they deal with their rates to the banks itself, they use that as an inducement for banks to respond. It's how they pass those rates on to their borrowers. But rates are pretty much market determined. But competition exists, and so within a competitive environment, the consumers are able to look for the best deals and ensure as well that they treat with their responsibilities properly. Once they do, they really don't have an issue in terms of the reports that would then be made to the Credit Bureau.
They take the case of the big United States of America. It was only until very recently that President Obama had to seek to get legislation passed to rein in the interest card rates. How will we safeguard consumers in Jamaica against runaway interest rates on credit cards? Mr. Chung?
Well, we could actually look at legislation. I think that the best way for consumers to be protected is for consumers to be educated and to protect themselves. I mean, that is going to be the best way, because even if you have a limit on interest card rates, on card rates, I mean, the fact of the matter is that someone could run up a credit overrun on their credit card that really damages them also.
Right.
Because the compounding effect that really kills you. I mean, one of the things that the Consumer Affairs Commission has been working on, which I think is very close to reality right now from the consumer's position, is a banking code of conduct, which monitors and provides some amount of transparency, once accepted by all parties, about the relationship between banks and consumers.
Right.
So consumers, for example, should be made aware of certain terms in credit card agreements.
Which we hardly read.
Well, you can't read it in many cases.
Yes, we hardly read it.
So one of the things that the Code of Conduct looks at is the size of the font, on the credit card agreement, and that people are made aware of any changes in charges, for example, within like 72 hours before the charge actually takes place. Those things are necessary. But, one of the other things also that's a phenomenon in the United States, which I think is going to have to become more active here, is that people are going to have more relationships with personal financial coaches, to ensure that you maintain a very good credit history and sound personal financial practices. Because that's very, very important. You know, a lot of people, for example, get sucked into this thing about car loans at banks and all of that. You know, I often wonder why. You know, because, you know, a car is from day one a depreciating asset. You know, so consumer education, I think, is going to be very, very important in order to protect the consumer, the most important thing, because you can regulate as much as you want. You know,
Miss Deane?
The legislation will do.
Yes, Miss Deane.
And having a credit bureau providing information to the banks. That database of information could actually benefit the consumers in the sense that right now, when you extend unsecured loans via, say, a credit card, the banks are completely in the dark about the extent of the credit of an individual throughout the system, unless they are properly declared it. Sometimes they do not. They're unaware of the extent of the arrears in the entire industry. Because we're gathering information and able to provide that analysis of information gives knowledge that allows more informed decision-making. That informed decision-making could actually allow the bank to track its risk, because right now they're pricing on the worst-case scenario. They're pricing as though everybody is going to have a certain amount of arrears. When they're able to actually distill the information we provide, they will be in a better position to price the risk that is attached to a particular product, their credit card or bad debt portfolios through car loans and that kind of thing. And then I think that would actually allow them to maybe extend the best possible rate both to subsectors of lending as well as to individuals who have shown through their credit reports and credit history that they handle their responsibilities. So it is going to be an evolution. It is absolutely critical, both from the government side of view, actually, for the industry to become more formal, to have a framework of operation. It actually is something required almost by the multilateral agencies, the International Monetary Fund. It helps with the whole market development. So we're actually moving in the right direction. And as Dennis says, consumers need to be informed. They need to be guided by persons who have expertise. It's not going to be a free-for-all anymore. People are going to have to deal. Both the government is being made to realize that you can't spend just like that. You have to have a responsibility framework attached, and the same is with individuals and with companies.
Good enough, Ms. Deane. But since we're starting at the front end now, will everyone start from scratch in terms of credit history? Well, or how will the new system work?
The legislation allows us to collect 7 years of data. So depending on how much data the credit providers currently have stored, we can collect up to 7 years of data. So if people have not been handling their credit well for the past 7 years, it is going to affect them. But what they have the opportunity to do at this point is to recognize that they have to start managing their situations properly. So if you find that you're running into problems, or if you find that you've lost your job and you're not going to be able to pay your obligations the way you would want to, then you need to go into your institutions, reschedule your debt, explain to them, and come on a payment plan that is capable of being managed by you. To the best
Clinton.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, one of the things I would recommend to people is that before even going to your financial institution and do that, because a lot of people do go into their financial institution and make another arrangement, which is a fault, and also because the fact is that you make an unrealistic arrangement even the second time based on your whole position, is you might want to work with a financial coach before, so that when you go to your financial institution, you know that you have a sound position that you can maintain, because your credibility on that second arrangement is going to be very, very important. Right. You know, so you want to make sure that when you go with a plan, you actually have something that is in alignment with your financial position. That I think is critical. You know.
And then, Ms. Deane, what about the companion habits now that we have to cultivate in Jamaica? Keeping receipts, shredding documents that you don't need rather than throwing it in the trash. Very soon you're going to have dumpster divers trying to dive into your garbage to find out your financial records so that they can rob you blind.
Well,
How do we cultivate those habits in Jamaica, which are not exactly popular here?
Well, I think persons listening to programs like this, who are hearing the discussion, will become aware that information out there about you can cause persons to steal your identity, and and persons stealing your identity and doing things in your name can create problems for you, especially now that credit reporting is going to be taking place. It's all a process of education, and I think the Consumer Affairs Commission is becoming much more vibrant in its communication with the public. That's another arena. And basically, persons just talking to each other. The credit unions, I know, have their education programs for their members. So really, it's all about education and learning how to manage both your credit as well as your business affairs.
Thank you so very much. We have to leave it there, having whetted our appetites about this very interesting innovation. Kind of scary to Credit Bureau in Jamaica. Credit history, credit scores, the whole works. Thanks, Ms. Deane. Thanks, Mr. Chung.
Thank you too, Reverend. It was good to have been here.
Take a break.